Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sonictalk episode 819, recorded today on the, it's the 9th of October 2024. This is a music technology podcast. We're going to talk about synthesizers and drum machines and software and DAWs and live performances and recording, all of the things that surround the creation and making of music. I want to say hello to all our friends in the chat room. Nice to see Wagyu there. Wagyu has been masterfully handling the coding of the back end that merges all our comments together. Thanks for that, Wagyu. Very well done. And also moderates. Nice to see some familiar faces in there. We've got Cheapo Card Company, Beats and Tapes, Chris S, half God, half Beast, Tracker Jack, Technomatic, Pro Synth Network, Rapscallion, and a whole bunch of other people's besides. I won't read you all out because I'd be here for ages, which is always very pleasing to see that there are so many people who join us for the live stream. Very much appreciated. Before I get on to introducing our guests, I'm going to crassly introduce an ad for our Patreon. Let me tell you about our Patreon. You get all of our reviews ad-free, so you don't have to put up with those pesky ads like this one. And also, we post extra content for many of our reviews. Never before seen footage from the archives. We've got 70 sounds and patches posts, 137 exclusive videos, a growing collection of impulse responses from classic reverbs, and 36 sets of samples from reviewed units, many in decent sampler format. In fact, the music you're listening to now was mostly made using our decent sampler and sample sets. So if you want to join us, head over to patreon.com/Sonicstate. Indeed you can. And don't forget, actually, the music was made by Paulee. So thanks to Paulee for doing that. And Paulee is here as a guest, which is why I happened to mention it. So, hey, Paulee, how are you doing? Paulee, of course, in Birmingham, in the studio there. Didn't see you at Synthfest. I should actually, before I go there, we're back from Synthfest. Synthfest was a show in Sheffield at the weekend. We filmed 20-odd videos up there. They're all online now. You can see them all. People are very interested in that. And it went really well. Great work, team. That's Chris and Andy and Ben, and I think that was it, wasn't it? Yeah. But, enough. It was good. It was all good. We're doing it all again next weekend at Bristronica, so we'll see you there. If you came over and said hello, I'm out of focus. If you came over to say hello, we'll be there for a couple of days in Bristol, so do that. Anyway, sorry, I hijacked your intro. How you doing, Paulee?
That's okay. I'm not bad. I'm starting at this point now to get into a bit of a spooky mood because, of course, Halloween is nearly upon us. I know there are certain people who hate the mention of any holiday, a few weeks before. But, I think October is fair game for kind of spookiness. So I did a very spooky, creepy, cool Gothamans instrument retrospective on my channel, which was a lot of fun with some weird and wonderful sounds. So yeah, just getting in that kind of Halloween spirit. We'll get the cobwebs up pretty soon and things like that. But yeah,
or don't take them down.
Or don't take them down. If they're real. The other thing, though, is I've slightly regretted not being able to get to the shows this year. But it's just been chaos, and I guess that happens some years, doesn't it? Like you've got other commitments, work commitments, things like that. So I went to Synthfest last year, met a bunch of people. So I'm looking forward to going to more things in the future. I think my next one is going to be Syntheast. I don't know if you'll be going to that in Feb, but
don't know. Yeah, maybe, not sure
yet. That will be a fun one to kind of look forward to in the bleak of winter. So yeah, but I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. And Richard Nicol, after a break, is back. We can't keep him away. He's addicted to Sonictalk. We can't afford to pay for your therapist to help you with this, but we can stop you from having withdrawals by having you on as a guest. Richard Nicol, of course, from Pittsburgh Modular, designer and head honcho at the August Synth Maker. How are you, Richard? You good?
I'm well. See, sometimes I have to take a break so I can sit and listen to the podcast. Which is nice to hear everybody else talk then. But it's good to be back. This is 2 weeks in a row, and it's a nice set of topics this week. I am sort of in a weird space in what I've been doing at Pittsburgh Modular. So we're sort of in the head down working on new stuff. Everyone has their little projects, so I've been staring at blank pieces of. I use Adobe Illustrator as my sort of canvas when I sort of conceptualize these things. So I've been doing a lot of Adobe Illustrator idea sessions, but it's been fun. It's been fun.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it's all good. All good. All good. And we also have Johan Nevo, who's there, Nevo Sound, where he mans the controls of his beautiful Neve desk. And yes, there we go. He's manning the controls right there, and produces and mixes and Atmos system, all that stuff. How are you, Johan? Are you well?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. I'm just in the middle of finishing, just finishing one album and in the midst of mixing another. So it's all about bouncing and stems and things like that on one thing while mixing another thing. So I'm at this point, I'm just hoping not to send the wrong link to the right persons or something like that. And in between all that, I'm actually exploring and quite enjoying Audio Modern Soundbox. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's a new sampler platform. And it's very cool so far. And it allows you to kind of randomize stuff. It loads in an instant, so it has 4 layers, and you can flick between them with an XY thing, with the motion and stuff like that. I'm really into that right now. So
right,
that kind of distracts me a bit, which is good because it helps me kind of stay fresh on the mixing side of things. And still working on some chains for Waves Studioverse and Studioverse instruments. Quite busy. Diverse stuff. And, yeah.
No, glad to hear it. Yeah, well, it's a busy time of year. I mean, these 2 shows, then we got a bit of a break, but then we're going to be starting. I mean, we're considering whether to go to NAMM or not. It's just a question of us getting the sponsors in place so that we can kind of commit to the massive expense that it takes us to get over there, but we may well be doing that. But anyway, I mean, aside from the Synthfest show, big news this week. I don't know what it is, but this week seems to be the week where everybody releases something, and it's no surprise. I mean, there's still more to come, I think. I know Cherry Audio are releasing something tomorrow. They were kind enough to sponsor our videos, and we will have some in the news about that. But the big news, I mean, we can't avoid it. I mean, this was, and we knew about this because basically Ableton came to us a couple of weeks ago in September with a preview of this. So this is the Ableton Move, which is new hardware, which is kind of a big deal, you know. I mean, for a company to drop this stuff. This is a 4-track sort of musical sketch pad, 2 effects per patch, 64 gigs of RAM, storage, streams off disk, so you can record. I mean, I think you can get like 4 minutes of sample time per drum slot. You know, it's powerful. Even though it's only 4 tracks, you've got to bear in mind that each drum track can be, 4x4, 16 tracks, 8-track polyphony. It's got drift, and it's got wavetable built in, so it's more akin to Note. And I was quite pleasantly surprised when they told me the price. It's $449 US dollars and euros. And this is a video of various people just kind of doing different demos, just showing that you don't need to have multiple tracks to do sort of minimalist stuff. This is quite a surprise. I mean, I know that this has been trailed, but I don't know whether anybody was expecting it. I know, Rich, I'll come to you because you've got an MPC-1 there, so you're in this. You qualify as having a standalone Groovebox kind of habit. What do you think?
I ordered one because it's gonna replace my MPC. It's for what I like to use it for. It's perfect. I love that it's just 4 tracks. I love that it's very simple. It's almost like I don't know. It's just a way to, when you're sitting outside, just something to poke at. I like to use these things not necessarily as ways to save ideas or anything, but just like a fidget spinner almost, just something that I can have on my lap that I can be poking at while I'm watching TV or while I'm on the train or whatever I'm doing. It's just my brain needs something, or I just get bored. So this one is absolutely perfect. And then when I perform, I do these live sessions with a couple of my friends. This is perfect to trigger the odd sample now and then to augment the the analog synths that I'm using for the majority. So where the MPC-1 does all this, it's sort of a large, unwieldy thing that's more of a DAW in a box, where this Move seems really perfect for someone that just wants to toy around with something. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to get it in and start to bang on it.
It's interesting, isn't it? I've been watching the comments. I mean, it's one of the biggest videos we've done for ages. I mean, we're already at 35K. We only posted it yesterday, so it's kind of it's really picking up, and it's interesting. I think ours was possibly one of the only ones where they went into a bit more depth, because the other videos are a bit more sort of lifestyle-y and aspirational, showing what can be done with it, which is absolutely fine. And I must admit, at 449, I was expecting when I asked how much it was to be kind of like, oh dear, that's going to be a terrible disappointment and people aren't going to buy it. But actually, to get it in at 449, I guess it's probably going to be about 400 UK. That takes into kind of circuit tracks kind of territory, and which is again a musical. But the fact that you can run stems off it, you can run MIDI off it, it's got a class-compliant MIDI interface. Those are things that could really sort of endear it to a lot of people. I don't know, Yoad, I know this isn't really in your world, but I mean, you must, when you're mixing or working on album projects, people have to kind of maybe ask you, what am I going to do about playing it live, for instance, and this just could be another thing that could possibly, work.
Absolutely. I think that, a couple of weeks ago when I was on the show, we talked about the Akai kind of thing, new thing. I don't remember what it's called, which is kind of a similar function. And this one is much more appealing to me. It looks less fiddly. The fact that it integrates with Ableton, and you can so it's almost like a mobile, if you compare it to the Logic ecosystem, so it's almost like a mobile kind of GarageBand, or like an iPad GarageBand, which you can play on your lap and then import it to Logic and continue to work. So it is kind of a professional thing, as well as inspirational and spontaneous and all that. So I think it's very cool. Also, as opposed to the Akai, which has very limited memory, this one seems to be more modern in terms of its capabilities. So it has, I think, 64 gigabytes. I saw your program about it this morning, and it was very good and very informative. And so I think, if I remember correctly, it has 64 kind of ROM memory and then 50 user memory. So that seems more like it. It's more similar to what you have in your phone these days. So to have anything less than that seems a little bit disappointing. And the fact that it has a mic, I'm not sure about the quality, but I use the phone mic a lot because they're so good. And these tiny mics, there is something about them which is really good when you import it when you import the sound files to your DAW, and it's really good quality. So if it has something like that, I'm not sure how good it can be, because it has to be inside those plastic chassis and all that, and it's not meant to be doing that as much as a phone is. But it's a really good thing, and the fact that it can serve as a sound card as well. So it seems very. I don't think I will get it, because it may end up just being here like like
Yeah.
other stuff that I have on the desk, like this Novation, Paddy thing and all that, which I really get excited about, but then never use. So, but I can see how it can be very appealing to a lot of people. And for me, the fact that it's a professional device, so you can start something on it and then carry on in a professional way. That's a big thing for me.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, isn't it? But I don't know how, I mean, you've done a bunch of those live-ins, which are sort of similar in concept in the sort of limited resources, groove boxes that kind of get you going. But this then you can take, further into live. You can't go the other way, though. So that's the one thing that people should be aware of. You can't sort of reduce your big live set into something that you could then play out with. You can, but it's not like a kind of reduction of a live set can then be put in at the moment.
I think a live set is it a live set if it was just 4 tracks and just use those plugins? Might be.
Well, or audio. I mean, audio.
Or audio, yeah. That, and I mean, that is the audio is where this thing kind of shines, I think, for me. Because in this sort of price bracket, remember, we've got some other very compelling kind of portable music making devices. We've got things like the Dirty Wave M8, which is brilliant for taking on a plane or something like that. Of course, you have to be into trackers, which I know you're really not, Nick. So
no,
you probably wouldn't enjoy that one. But this more kind of grid-based workflow could work for you. So anyhow, like any new product that comes out, I dived into the manual and I had a little look to see what kind of interested me about this thing. Because, a lot of the demos have got a bit more of a cool street urban feel. And I'm thinking, is a pasty goth from Birmingham going to be able to make industrial beats on it?
Oh, yeah,
and
I would think so.
I would think so. In the sampling section, I like the fact that there were playback effects for the samples and the stretch, loop, pitch, envelope, nothing too fancy. Punch, I guess that adds a bit of a transient. And then there's 8-bit, FM, ring mod, subosc, and noise. So there's going to be some really cool sample mangly kind of stuff in there. And let's not forget you can modulate the sample start point as well. So you're going to get into, very cool, bizarre territory quite quickly. The one little thing I noticed, and it could be a completely pedantic thing, is that the samples, you can do so much to them, and it's really deep with sampling. But the synths, I think you only get 8 macro parameters.
It's just the macros, yeah. It's definitely that, yeah.
You don't get any sort of deep editing. And for me, I wouldn't call that a completely standalone device, because you have to make presets somewhere else and import them. I'd perhaps call that more like a satellite or a tethered device. And it's not going to be an issue for a lot of people because a lot of people make music by preset tweaking. It's just, the anal OCD people like me who like to make presets from scratch, every single preset from scratch. That are going to kind of have an issue with that. So I think for the target market, it's going to be fine. But yeah, I was impressed with the level of sample kind of mangling you can do in it, basically. So yeah, I wouldn't mind giving it a go for that reason.
It's interesting, the UI experience. They've done some really, they've made it actually, I think it's about the least amount of friction for getting ideas in. And I know people who've recently got the KO2, which is a similar thing. They've done a very good job of making it fairly friction free to get ideas out of your brain into the sequencer. And I think this is the similar approach. So it's not really about sitting there and designing sounds. It's about sitting there and coming up with the stuff that you would then maybe tweak afterwards. And the UI seemed really intuitive to me. I must admit, I was quite impressed with it. And I think that there are a couple of other things. We've got per pad pressure, so it's poly after touch for those things. It's not positional like the Push 3, but I mean, bearing in mind this is kind of what, a quarter of the price of an expanded Push. So, you know, it's a very different thing. So I think I knew people have sort of been saying, they've been sort of moaning about the lack of tracks, but if you're triggering samples and loops and things, a drum track will give you 16 sounds, you know, so you can have your drums and some playback. Although not, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, Yoad has his hand up in a very polite
I was just
fashion.
wondering how it functions, or whether it functions as a kind of MIDI controller trigger for Ableton or for other.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
It does.
It does.
It does for Ableton, yes. You can tether it in Ableton mode, and then it can control your Ableton session.
So then it goes offline in terms of its internal sounds, and it's just a MIDI controller.
I think so, but I would have to. I mean, I think that's the same with Push, though, isn't it? It's the same. It does the same thing there. You switch it into control mode, and it becomes just the controller.
Because you know, as an MPE. Yeah, as an MPE controller with aftertouch and everything, it's quite interesting, and I wonder if you can transmit the scales and the layout of the pads through MIDI. Because
you can try. I would say it's not quite MPE, because MPE would imply that there was positional data on the pads, like there is in Push 3, where you can sort of wiggle.
Well,
the
even
pitch.
polyphonic aftertouch.
Yeah, polyphonic aftertouch, though, for sure. Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, interesting. So I wish them all the best of luck with it, because it's actually kind of it just feels like it could be something. It's so often in these cases where it's sort of so close but not quite. I mean, I know for some people maybe 4 tracks is a deal breaker or whatever, but for me it sort of felt like actually I think they might have just about got it right. And obviously, goodness knows, most companies at the moment need a hit, right? Because they need money in to keep developing the future products and all of that kind of stuff. Richard,
I think with stuff like this, it comes down. With stuff like this, it comes down to workflow. They're selling a workflow with this because, like we've seen, you can do a lot of this stuff on your phone already, but they're giving us a really, really interesting workflow in a way that catches you right away, in the same way that like the Teenage Engineering OP1 does. As soon as you turn that thing on for the first time and you start to play it, you get really positive results, and you get that sort of sensation of, oh, this is going to be fun, and I can do something really interesting with it. And that was the same sort of vibe that I got watching your video, Nick, with this thing, that as soon as you turn it on, you can really dive in and be immersed in what you're doing. And I think for that reason, Ableton really did a nice job with this. They've created a workflow that's engaging and fun, but you can also create something useful with it. And that, I like it. Yeah, no, fair enough. I think that's totally fair enough. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick ad break. Introducing Plasma by iZotope. Intelligent, intuitive saturation. With groundbreaking flux saturation technology, Plasma adaptively enhances your tracks by applying saturation precisely where and when it's needed, ensuring a dynamic and polished sound. Unlike traditional saturators that apply a static effect, Plasma's dynamic processing ensures your mix or master sounds consistently balanced and professional. Whether you're looking to quickly warm up your sound or douse your track in secret sauce, Plasma's intuitive interface and easy-to-use controls have you covered. And yes, you can use this on everything. And don't forget, you can save 10% by using the code SONIC10 at checkout. Once again, we thank iZotope for the continued support of the show. Back to our guests. Almost a slick ad piece there. And don't forget, if you go to iZotope.com/Sonictalk, there is an actual, here you go, there's information on how to save that 10%. We thank them very much for their support. Okay, right, well, that's one big thing. I mean, the next bit, there are actually quite a lot of things to look at this time. So one of the big ones is obviously from, it was from Synthfest, and I think I've got a button here. Yeah, I mean, Analogue Solutions doing it again. Why not? Tom, nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Never a Synthfest Synthfest is never complete without you bringing out some kind of new massive behemoth synthesizer.
I feel the pressure every year now because people are saying, what are you going to bring next year? And this is probably the 4th year of something big, but whether I can keep that up for another year, we'll see. But,
well, yeah. I mean, you say big, and I would say, anyway, I watched the whole thing. We've got the playlist on YouTube. It's all there and available. The Analogue Solutions were showing a sort of prototype or a pre-production model, pre-order model of the TC-5000, which is not, as one might think, a TC Electronics DSP processor, but in fact, it's actually not. It's not a 2500. It's a sort of 2500 inspired synth. So it looks like it. They haven't gone for the same. They've gone for the same matrix and pin system, which, I mean, looking at that case, it's a massive case with sort of one strip of modules in it, and then the rest is patch bay. It just seems like a sort of hugely luxurious amount of space to use. I've never used or touched a 2500, and I think, you know, what Tom was saying, it's more about the UI. And yeah, if you it's one of those things, if you have to ask how much it is, you can't afford it. It's going to be 22 grand or something. Yes, we know all of that stuff, and we can all go, that's nice. And when we see one in the flesh, we'll thoroughly enjoy it. I'm going to come to you, Richard, because one thing that he said, actually, Tom said, is, you know, in a previous video we shot with him, the kind of chasing of the desktop and the kind of budget sort of stuff, he just got a bit sick of it and just thought, you know what, I'm just going to go this way. Do you secretly have an envious? Are you envious of his approach just because you think, you know what, wouldn't that be fun just to go, sod it, let's make something ridiculously big and not worry about bill of materials, just go for it?
Well, no. It's I like smaller instruments that I can fit on my little desk here, but I do understand his inspiration as a designer to sort of scratch that itch of, I'm going to make this instrument because I feel like it needs to be here. And there is a sort of race to the bottom as far as people feeling the pressure to make things as cheap as possible and as simple as possible, and taking it to the other extreme. You know, there is a market for that, and I suspect he has people lining up to order these things, or he wouldn't continue to do it. You know, his instruments sound gorgeous, and the idea that it's inspired by, you know, an instrument that has inspired all of us for many, many years, I think there's a workflow there that some artists are going to find very musical and very natural to them. Not me, but I love this thing. I love that it's that he's not taking a 2500 and saying, okay, I'm going to copy the sounds and clone the sounds. It's very much his own instrument, just given a form factor that maybe didn't quite make it through the ages.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, there is a lot of wasted space on there, but I mean, given the amount of patch points, it's almost impossible to consider there's anything left. Yeah, and I can see, like, you've got a back wall there just above the sofa. I mean, you know, you got room, right?
Yeah.
No.
Let's not go there. But I was, I mean, the first time I saw and I watched your video, and it like your segment on it, and it's great. And so the first thing that jumped to me was I thought it was TC, like modeling of the TC M5000, TC Electronic M5000 reverb, which I love. So I was like, hey, maybe that's available in. But it's not. As a module, yeah. And I was thinking Analog Solution modeling a digital reverb. What's going on there? But so that was not the case. I think it's a really, really good idea. I think there are a few things that come to my mind in terms of so one of the reasons I don't use modular so much, and I'm glad that I was able to stop myself rather than, you know, going having all that kind of. And I actually even had a thought, because, you know, the Neve is the chassis is like a 19-inch, so I could actually remove a few channels and have it all kind of Euro-rack and all that. So
Danger.
But I didn't go there. One of the reasons is recallability. So for me, it's very important to be able to recall stuff. And this type of matrix allows you to do it relatively easy, even if you just take pictures. So what I would do firstly would be to number or somehow identify the different patch modules, and then either take pictures, which is easy enough, or even create like a thing on the screen that you can replicate what they do. The other thing, which, well, he hasn't taken that route, but it would be kind of, like on the Matrix Brute, the way it's basically the same thing, but with switches rather than pins. And it will be, even with pins, it will be relatively easy to map it like like a computer keyboard, where you can recall, have little LEDs or something that allow you to basically insert the pins, albeit manually, but restore it or recall it in a way, which I think would be very, because imagine taking pictures of patch base, even if, you're never going to recall the knobs and all the settings, but at least the configuration of a modular patch, so that even as it is, with just taking photos of it, it is kind of manageable. And I know that there are some modules which allow you to do that. So you patch, there's like some XY modules, which I think are VCA, and you plug everything into them, and then it allows you to do that. I think it's a good. I'm not sure about the form factor, whether it is compatible with anything, because it won't fit in a rack. It's like a furniture. It's its own sort of thing. I
think it has to be a piece of
like
furniture.
a System 55 or something like that, I guess. Even longer, it seems.
I must confess, I was a bit disappointed he hadn't put in the do in it and just had it doing that the whole time, because obviously the 2500. But he didn't. I know, Paulie. I mean, this is the sort of thing that we can aspire to. I mean, I think something like this would drive me mad though, because it would require. I think the format of the 2500 is kind of. It's unique, but I also think it's pretty dumb in a lot of ways. Although for recallability, it's great, but for the size of cabinet, given what you've then got to do, so you got, I don't know what that has. It's got like something like, I didn't count the number of pins per matrix board. So there was one above and one below. So that's a module with a 256 points and then another 256 below, or something approached that. Was massive. And I just think that seems ridiculous. Crazy business.
Listen, if you can afford this, right, then you can afford the patching butler to go with it.
That's true,
what I say. You know, make my patch. Yes, sir. I think is this a kind of instrument sometimes where the instrument stops becoming a tool to make art and almost becomes a work of interactive art itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I can imagine I can imagine people just being, it being a very inviting thing to have in a studio, maybe even the lobby of a studio, as a way of attracting clients, they've got this big patch pin matrix system, so it's not really about whether, I guess, it's practical. It's more about whether it's kind of exciting and dangerous, and hopefully not literally dangerous, that you won't get a shock if you put it in the wrong way.
No, I think so.
But
given the amount of money it would be, the sort of place where this might be put, you could imagine it being part of an Agatha Christie style. What's that? What were those movies recently, which were like The Glass Onion, and it could be a central piece of one of those. Yeah. killed by the
and I was
somebody.
thinking, about the type of room that this would go in, and I was imagining, like crushed orange curvy chairs and
all of that stuff,
like dark teak kind of, furniture and mid-century stuff. It'd be absolutely amazing. So, but it's gonna sound good. That's the other thing. I am a massive fan of some of their earlier instruments. The Leipzig is an absolutely incredible sounding instrument, and I know some of the circuits in there are based on the Leipzig.
He said they were sort of
the Telemark
from Greatest Hits. Yeah, that's right. He said they
which is fantastic.
Hits.
So you're going to get something which looks amazing, possibly invites new clients in, or they got one of them. They know their business, and sounds great. So it's going to be worth it for the people who are seeking that kind of wow factor.
I hope so.
What I would do with something like that is I would write my name with the pins and see what kind of patch comes out of that.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. Well, you could do quite a lot of rows of writing in there. You could get you get a couple of paragraphs in that acreage of them. Absolutely massive.
My name and my address.
Yeah, well, maybe not. You could. My phone number. Hey, ladies. Yeah. Okay. Well, interesting. So
that guy's got that was
matrix. The big pin drum matrix. That's it. That's the big one. So what else is next? There was I like this one actually. This was another thing that I shot. This was from Synthfest, and this was the AMS Stands. Hey, Glenn. Nice to see. There were two things. I'm going to fast forward. All right, over here. Yeah. So these are really interesting extruded aluminium little they're kind of quite lightweight, and you can build your own stuff. They start about 40 quid
got a profit there
for the little sort of
shows you the idea,
I guess the Z fold. And go up to about,
I've noticed it like 19-inch
200 for the bigger ones, but it seems reasonably
as well. So
right?
What we found on
cool.
a lot of synths, you can't support them at the front. So by having these, you can adjust them where you want.
Brilliant,
so when
what
you've
a
got
great
the
idea!
That's
underneath
incredible.
The keyboards, they fit in
great
quite
idea.
nicely.
Oh, that's neat. He was a great guy, this guy, and this was the Obelisk Designs AMS Stands. So you can buy them. They ship all over the world. In fact, he said that it's easy for them just to ship direct. They've got great shippers, and they can handle America and stuff. I might get some for the office just for sort of building Friday jam sort of setups where you have to put everything. I can raise something. They're just a really cool piece of innovation and something that I like. I know, Yared, you've got a bunch of stands there, but yours are all black and a bit more heavy duty. I could see some of these working for some other knickknacks and doodahs.
Yeah. So I was looking on the website because I have here a 5-tier one and a bunch of 4-tier ones, which are never enough, and I would say that it's quite, for me, I find it quite expensive because I don't move them. They're kind of,
well, that makes sense.
There and the stationary, and I don't change. For something to have, like you said, to have on the desk and to be able to use and change, that would be great. I also could. So there's only one kind of rack that has that is floor standing. The other, most of them are desk. And I couldn't find the bits, like the arms and all the kind of bits. If I wanted to make one for me, for my needs, because the one I saw was like a 4-tier, and that's it.
I think what it is though, Yared, is rather than, they're not built to be like a 5-tier heavy keyboard stand. They're more specifically for, maybe you have one big keyboard and then a couple of smaller ones. It's not really, they're not designed as those big sort of like these. I need to put all my big girls on this one. That it's a sort of.
But you could, if they were selling the arms and all the other bits, you could then have a 7-tier if you so wish. So I think that's a kind of
maybe, yeah. Yeah, interesting idea, but I think they're more bespoke. I know, Richard, there's something, you're probably like me, there's something, I think I started the video by basically saying there are two things that I get excited about. One is luggage and the other is kind of stands and things, and this was just one of those. It just thought, oh yeah, some of this stuff looks really nice with all the kind of all the adjustability and whatnot.
That's it. When I get a stand, or at my desk here to the right of me, everything is, I like it to be perfect. I like the angle to be right, and I like it to be set up exactly right, because I have to sit and stare at it all day long. And these stands really, to me, were a great idea of, here's the stand, and this is the kit you get, but it's very flexible at what angle you can have it at, and how many shelves you can have, and how wide it is. To me, it always drives me crazy if a stand is larger than what I'm trying to put on it. I don't want to look at the stand. I want to look at the instrument, or I want to look at whatever is on there, whatever it might be. So to me, the idea of having these shelves be perfectly set and I can have 2 or 3 little instruments on my desk is great, because I don't have a lot of space. My office is my dining room in my home, so I don't like it to look too synthy, because everyone that comes into my house has to walk through here.
May I just say you're kind of failing massively there. If you want some feedback,
Cat's out of the bag, mate.
All right. Well, to be honest, I did design all these things, and I like to show off what I do for a living.
Yeah, that's
All right, I'm just going to go sit in the corner now while you guys talk. That's fine.
You're right, though. They are. I mean, they do seem that they're unreasonably pleasing, these things, and the fact that they're all adjustable, and they look pretty well made. So I'm kind of. I think I'm going to go order a couple and see how they work for certainly the desk here, where I can just put things up, and just sort of laptop stands and things like that. I could imagine, because it's good to have your laptop up a little bit so that you're not looking down. Because if you're looking down at your laptop the whole time, after about 10 years or plus, you will have really bad neck and shoulder problems, which you don't want. So I would say that. I don't know. What do you think, Paulee? I can see that there could be. Yeah, I could see this working with you.
The thing is, I love my big 6-tier Jasper stand, but it costs more than some synths. Do you know what I mean? I think it was about 360 quid or something for 6 tiers of fun that I can barely reach. And I'm 6'1", by the way. I can barely reach the top keyboard. But I had to put the V synths on the top because of the D beam.
Yeah.
What was that?
What was
Tears
that?
Of Joy.
Tears of Joy. Oh, excellent. There's the show title. Hold on, I'm just going to write that down. Carry on, as you were.
There was, as I was, I've got a Stay 3-tier tower as well, which I really like. But I've got lots of smaller synths that I've had to basically either use industrial shelving, bits of Meccano. I kid you not. I've got different bits of old Meccano sets to put certain things on, because I'm just trying to build up. Try and put everything on kind of monitor stands as well. And also those laptop stands, that's a laptop stand, that's a laptop stand. There's loads around, and a new player in this field is most welcome, to me, because I've got a lot of synths which aren't very heavy, they're just like groove boxes or stuff. And sometimes I kind of use that plastic slat shelving. I just get a shelf of that kind of, it's clear plastic, and put that on one of the tiers of my keyboard stand, so I can put lots of little things. So there's a lip. So I was getting quite excited by that adjustable lip that was on this one, basically, Not as
Nice.
excited as you were, clearly.
Well,
But
no, I
quite
mean,
excited,
because I
so
think the thing
there we
about
go.
that extrusion thing, it's got a little T section, so I could see you could do things like, I'm just looking for you could have things that would adjust, you could put camera attachments that would slide in, and you
Yes.
quarter 20s, and all sorts of stuff that you could put. Would be great for filming and kind of having a mic or a light or all kinds of stuff. So I think
Definitely.
I could totally see them expanding this. I wish he's a lovely bloke. I'm wishing all the best with it, because I've not come across it before, and I think it'll be an absolute cracker. Okay, right. I think it's time for an ad break. Back in a minute. Kompete 15 is arriving with more rumbling bass, dreamy textures, sparkling tones, and thousands of new sounds. Including Contact 8 with a brand new loop playground and interactive idea generators to get in the zone faster and get more from your favourite instruments. Whatever sound your music needs, make it with Kompete 15. And don't forget, the code Sonic10 will also get you 10% discount over at nativeinstruments.com. So Sonic10, save 10%. Pretty straightforward, isn't it, really? Okay, let's see. What's next? Yeah, there's more. I mean, I think maybe we need to move away from Synthfest just for a moment and have a quick look at the, let's see. Was it the Synthx? Yeah, why the hell not? Yeah, that's just out. Synthx V, which is, Arturia's recent crop of synths has really, they've really upped their TAE, the total analog engine. They're starting to sound, they sound really good. And the Synthx V is the next one. This is the legendary Italian one. Possibly the last of the legendary Paulee synths to be modelled. I'm not sure. I could be wrong there, but I think it pretty much is. So, yeah, that was out yesterday. At the moment, it's not included in the V Collection X, but you can sort of buy it and add on. I guess it'll be added on. And I was looking at this because I think I've played with the Synthx a little bit. I don't remember being, I'm sure they all sound fantastic, to be honest. I mean, it's like my memories of synths are so sort of dim and distant. I put the CS15 on the table the other day, and it was like, oh God, that sounded amazing. But I remember back in the day when I was using it for remixes, I never went to it because I didn't think it sounded that bassy, but I was just obviously had rubbish monitors because there's so much bass there. So I'm guessing the Synthx is probably a classic. Of course, Jean-Michel Jarre's famous laser harp, and these are things. I'm guessing, it makes sense. These are the sort of things that make sense for you because you could just whack them in session and then they become, integrated, recallable, all of those sort of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to remember whether Cherry Audio have modeled the Synthx. I'm not.
Oh, yeah, they
there is another
somebody
one, a competitor.
I know that they have the
competitor.
CS80. I think I vaguely remember that they do, and it would be interesting to compare because I love Cherry Audio. I think they have like amazing products. So it would be interesting to compare the Synthx. It's a beast. Sorry?
I think you're right, actually. I think they did. I'm just going to have a quick look at that.
Yeah, I remember something vaguely. So it will be interesting to compare. I remember working with the Synthx, and it is a beast. It is a beast. Just the sawtooth, just the kind of.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm not sure what. Sorry?
It's the Elka X. You're right. It is, which is.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not there, is it?
I'm not sure whether it's a DCO or VCO. I should know stuff like that.
DCO, DCO, Elka X. Elka was a DCO, and the SEM filters.
But there was something I remember. There was something quite wide about just playing some chords on it. Which
I think it's duotimbral, so maybe it pans or something. I can't remember. It could be that. Yeah, okay.
Just the sound. So it's not, obviously it's not a VCO kind of thing, but it sounded massive. So and I think that probably Behringer are working on one if they haven't.
I think so. Yeah.
So that will be also interesting.
Be a bit more than 49
yeah,
euros, though, I'd imagine. Just a little, but
I will try the Arturia one. I have a connection to them, so maybe they'll even send me one because I have the.
Kent Spong in the chat says 74 LS 193 VCOs. I don't know.
Oh, so it is VCOs.
Well, I thought they were DCOs. In all the blurb I've been reading, it's been DCOs. So maybe that's just
from my memory, and it has been a very long time ago. I remember the kind of sort of widths that comes from the drift. Maybe it's a chorus thing, but I remember it sounding like really lush and big and wide.
I can't remember. But I don't know, it's a lot less hassle, isn't it? I mean, making polysynths in Analogue is a nightmare. I mean, nobody gets it right, or it's very hard to get right and tuned and in tune. Leave it to the software guys, right, hey, Richard? Unless, of course, you're working on one yourself. I mean, I wouldn't want to...
No.
24 voice, 5 oscillators per voice. You heard it here, folks.
Yeah. Just leave the specs in the comments, and I'll just jot them down afterwards. It's fine. Whatever you need it to be. No, these huge sort of battleship instruments, I think, work so well as plugins because they don't have to sit in the corner 99% of the time. It's a virtual thing. I thought I don't know. I'm not terribly familiar with this instrument. I've never had one. I've never used one. But I thought in the videos that I watched, 2 or 3 of the demo videos, I thought it sounded very nice. And I liked that it didn't sound like a Jupiter, or it didn't sound like a Juno. It kind of had its own vibe to it. That I did appreciate. I like the idea of layers. That's a lot of oscillators. I did read that it was DCOs, which makes sense because with 8 voices times 2 oscillators, that's a lot of oscillators to keep in tune at once. So I can't imagine doing that with VCOs. That has to be DCOs that are in there. But it did. Anytime you get that many oscillators together, that whether they're VCOs or DCOs, you're going to have some analog drift, and you're going to have some lushness to it. It's just a idea of scale there. But another great instrument that's sort of saved from history, recreated, that anyone can now use to make music is fantastic. I'm all for it.
I think, it's 2 oscillators, I believe, and duo timbal, and of course Arturia bringing all the. I'm looking at the cherry specs at the moment, which is probably not what I should be doing. But there's the effects, and there's some really interesting arpeggiator stuff that Arturia have done. I know it looks nice. I don't know if I want that. I need the specific Synth X sound. Sure. I'm not sure.
Talk Synthxy to me. Anyway.
Hey, there we go.
So
I think we have.
There's a few things about the Synthx. I've never seen one. The huge, the massive. There's a few things about the instrument which really, really appeal to me. One, of course, is the fact that there's a very powerful sequencer. And you can actually have different steps on the 2 rows of sequences. So you can get, quite polyrhythmic kind of stuff going on, which I think is amazing for the time, that it was released, especially in a polyphonic instrument. Just to have that kind of really fun workflow. The other things which really kind of appeal to me about it, and why I want someone to kind of clone it in a more affordable price bracket, because I know there's the Black Corporation did a Synthx clone, but it's still like $4,000 or something. There's a few things about it. You can cross-modulate not the oscillators, because I believe they're DCOs, but you can cross-modulate the pulse width of the oscillators. You'll like this, Nick.
Woohoo.
Pulse width modulation at audio rates. My OB6 does that. You can get OSC2 to modulate the pulse width of OSC1. But I believe the Synthx, you can do it kind of bilaterally, and each can modulate one another. And then they've thrown a digital ring mod in there as well. So it's, you know, most polysynths from that time either had filter FM or kind of exponential cross mod FM, but not that many of them had this kind of audio rate cross mod of pulse width and digital ring modulation. And that, with the multi-mode filter, really takes it to different places. And the filter's like a SEM 3320, I think, which I've got one in my modular behind me. So my plan is to get this plugin, sample out some multi-samples of quite static, interesting spectra, you know, from cross-modulating those pulse widths or bringing in the ring mod. Yeah. And then putting them into some of my samplers, like I've got an Akai S700, and I can connect it to my VX90 and get real SEM filters on those tones. Although I think it's the 3394 in the Akai, but that's kind of my plan, you know, to kind of make some kind of fun static patches and then bung them through my old samplers. I do that quite often with VSTs. I know it's quite a perverse pastime to multi-sample VSTs and put them in old samplers, but they sound absolutely beautiful in there, you know?
Right.
With analog filters, with real analog filters going on. I mean, you know the Mirage, how beautiful that was, so...
Yeah, well, I did
thing,
actually...
You know?
The only thing with what you're describing is that it has to be paraphonic and probably mono.
That's it,
so
yes.
If you have one filter.
Yeah, I've got the Akai's, though. There's a 13-pin pass-through, so you can run it 6-voice polyphonic into the SEM filters.
Then you need 6 filters and wild. 6 envelopes.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah, and I do. So that's cool.
Oh.
Yeah,
excellent. Fun. That's fun. Okay, well, that sounds good. I mean, yeah, I'm glad. Again, you know, and there are. I suppose the thing is now we're getting to the point where there are many of these flagships, you know, like Cherry have got one, yes. Arturia have got one, someone else will come up with one or maybe make a difference or whatever. It's going to be interesting. And then so we have different software flavors, different software emulations of these things, which, yeah, it's just sometimes they sound, you know, some things sound more alive. It just depends on how much work goes into them and how, you know, because DSP modeling of these things is complex. I did actually say that I would post something for the folks over at, here it is. I'll just play this one. I think I can do this. This is for the Pro Sound Network because they very kindly bought me dinner on Saturday night, so I feel like I've been bribed to play there. They've got the Mini Moog Raffle, which I think you'd probably check. I'll post this. This will give you the link to it. Mini Moog Raffle. They're teaming up with the Bob Moog Foundation. This is signed by Peter Gabriel. So that, I don't know when it shuts, but it's the full one.
Have been ardent supporters of the Bob Moog Foundation and Michelle's work to sustain the foundation. Again, I suggest you go over there and check that whole out. I won't play the whole thing, but I did promise that Robbie that I would post. So do enter that. That's another one. Also, of course, the money goes to a good cause, which is supporting the Bob Moog Foundation, which, as we know, is a great organisation and puts synths in the hands of kids and keeps the legacy alive and all of those sort of things. Does anybody want to talk about anything else, or are we kind of? I mean, we're fairly close to the end. There were a couple of things, but I think they probably would be.
I wouldn't mind mentioning Disting briefly.
Yeah, all right. Let's have a quick. This was another thing because this came out just before Synthfest, and this is the Disting, which is
nice to see you. Nice to see
Ozzy's
you. Also
new Disting, which is
Synthfest. Big release for you guys, right? Big, biggest ever in terms of physical size and possibly in terms of importance, I would guess, to
What a genius.
That was my first video I shot. So yeah, the Disting NT, as we know, for those who maybe don't know, Expert Sleepers make the Disting, which is a kind of multi-function module, which is just rammed full of I/O and function generators and sample playback and all kinds of things. It's quite small. It's had a very small AMOLED screen with very tiny fonts, which most people find all right. But this is what they've done here is they've made a bigger version with a bigger display, more I/O, and it means more things can happen concurrently. And it's quite a big undertaking, and I think it's about $599. I don't know what the original Disting was, but lots of people have Distings in their rack, more than one. So I guess this might replace two. I don't know it, so it may well be a good thing. It's a bit larger, and it's just got a lot more stuff. And I guess one of the things you were mentioning, Paulie, was the fact that this sort of the idea of these meta modules that do lots and lots of things. Because you've just been looking at the 4MS meta for us, and we're going to have a look at that soon.
Yes.
And this is a very similar kind of concept, isn't it?
Definitely. I've also got another one called the Tesseract Vinia on the way, which is another kind of do-it-all module with oscillators, envelopes, LFOs, and stuff like that. I find this kind of thing really interesting because I've got a Disting Mark III, one of the quite old ones in my rack, and it was in fact it's a great 4U sample and hold for me, 4 HP sample and hold. But I don't really switch it out of that mode that often because I'll kind of lose my place because the screen's so tiny on it, Yeah. It doesn't really even have a proper screen, the Mark III. They only brought kind of screens in the Mark IV and the EX. But nevertheless, the kind of interplay between what I call virtual modular, where you can have a bunch of stuff in one box, and real modular is what excites me. So I can basically have, with the 4MS meta module, I can have literally all of the mutable instruments modules. I can have all of the Bufacca modules, and it's not quite as good as having all of the real ones, but you can try a lot of stuff out and interface it with real analog components, like from Dupfer or Pittsburgh Modular. They're pretty good guys, I hear.
Yeah. You want to leave them well alone. Yeah, look, Richard's shaking his head. It's like the Gerald Ratner moment.
And I know, again, it's another perverse thing, but I'm a bit odd, But I like the fact that, I had the LXR drum synth recently go in for that video I sent you, and I was using the meta module as a kind of a trigger burst generator and a clock divider, and having a whale of a time without having to kind of go and try a bunch of different clock dividers to see which one I liked best, It's not so this Disting with the first one for many people, which will have a usable screen, is quite an exciting thing, because I think it's got something like 8 or 12 channels in. So it's in fact 12 Distings. Yeah, there's an expansion as well. So
there is. It's interesting.
MIDI,
I think
it's interesting. Yeah.
So do you think, Richard, you're a developer of use digital, code in your modules, for various things. Yoad, you also develop, concepts for plugins. I mean, the idea of having a repository for all of these nifty ideas that you can add as a function to a kind of base module is probably quite appealing in many ways, is it not? Because it means that you could it gives them somewhere to live. I suppose the difficulty is you'd have to then create a base OS and a kind of piece of hardware for it. But I mean, it kind of appeals. I wonder if you'd ever open it up so you could just kind of go, I've got a load of things that I'd like, Logic Get, whatever it may be. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it, though?
I think that it's sort of closed allows it to be better. I kind of think of the Disting as glue. It's the module that always solves that problem that you can't solve with your analog modules. It allows you to have maybe a 208 HP case to take to gigs instead of having a giant 360 HP or a 4-rack row case, because it solves all the little problems that just sort of eat up the HP from what you really want to have, which is beautiful sounding filters and beautiful sounding oscillators. So it allows you to centralize everything and sort of get rid of all the extra stuff. That said, the thing I've always had against the Disting is, my eyes are terrible. So it was always very difficult for me to read that screen. The larger one seems to open that up and make it a little bit easier for people like me that don't have the greatest vision in the world, the ability to use this thing. And so for that reason, and the fact that it has so many ins and outs and solves so many problems, I could see this being sort of the hub of a system. Even in the video you posted, Nick, where he's like, oh, and you need a mixer, so here's a mixer. Those kind of solutions in the modular world are not easy. If you have a full analog system, it's going to sound lovely, but if you want to add a mixer, well, something's got to come out. So the idea that you have something that you can fit in and add a little bit here, and it just solves all these little problems, that to me is where this thing really excels, and why I'm glad now it's larger and I can use one.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The thing that he did say is there's concurrency. It's got enough power, so you could use 4 channels of mixer, and it could do something else and something else at the same time. And it's interesting though, isn't it? I mean, I suppose in many ways, what you do with the Logic environment is effectively allows you to create these kind of custom functions and features and things. So having it in hardware, makes sense as well, I suppose.
Totally, and I really welcome the trend of incorporating digital equipment within like an analog modular rack, because I think that in up until a few years ago, the modular community was quite puristic and only analog and this, and now there's more kind of integration with digital. Even I have the Phonogene and the Roland Scooper, which you can program the filters on your phone and then transmit them. So
way ahead of their time.
This. Sorry?
Bit way ahead of their time, really, those, I think.
Yeah, and they don't sound, they're not sounding great, but they sound decent in terms of filters. The Phonogene is really good because it's a sampler that you have all the pins to really use sequencers and envelopes and things like that, which no other sampler digital like plugin can even do.
Sure.
So I like that kind of integration, and now you can get Yuhi, Saints, and Waldorf, and all that. So it's great, and I think that up until a few years ago, if you would say to someone, but the mixer the mixer module is doing it in a digital with A to Ds and D to As and all that, but it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, it's making the noises that you want. So the kind of the boundaries are getting a bit blurred between digital and analog, and I kind of welcome that trend.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Anyway, I'm glad it exists. I mean, I know Oz is a one-man band, so it's pretty impressive that he's been able to kind of do all of this stuff. And he's got analog modules. I mean, he's very, I don't know how he's managed to keep up that level of output, because it's pretty impressive for somebody who works. He says he's one man. I'm sure he's got supporting something else going on there as well. But generally speaking, okay, I think we're going to wrap things up now. It's been very good to have you aboard. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. Nice to see some familiar faces. I saw Carl Bedford in there, and Ian J. Cole, who I met up with. I said hello about in person. Like I say, we'll be at Bristronica next week. I don't know if I don't think any of you. Paulie, you're not going to be able to make it now. I thought you might be coming, but you can't make it. That's a shame. It's going to be a great show, so do come and say hi. As long as I'm not in the middle of filming something, I'm sure I will be not too grumpy. But yeah, so Yoad, I guess you straight back to your album mixes and STEM productions, right?
Yeah, I am.
Excellent. Well, hopefully see you again soon. Actually, we're going to be coming up to London the weekend of the 26th, so I'll maybe be around. I don't know if you're around.
Let me know.
I will let you know. Be good, yeah. I'm coming with my missus, so she might not appreciate the work-related hookups, but we'll see if I can get her to go shopping or something. Maybe I can figure that out. She's not one for shopping, to be honest. And Richard Nicol, thank you very much for joining us. You're going to go back to your blank slate of Illustrator screen, so you can come up with some fabulous... I think that 24... voice, 3 oscillators per voice analog polysynth was probably the thing we'd like to see next, if that's all right.
Yeah, I'm working on that. I've been working on it during the conversations here. No, actually, I got a text during the show, and I have to go now have a meeting about software bugs in a drum machine. So that's going to be fun. That's right. Anytime you have good arguments about it should do this, no, it should do this. Well, it should do it this way. That's the kind of afternoon I'm going to have today.
Excellent. Well, I hope it's all it can be. Thank you very much for joining us, Richard. Always a pleasure. And Paulee, I'm sorry we're not going to see you this weekend, but hopefully we'll see you soon. You must come down and visit, and we'll
definitely
we can hook up. But what's next for you?
It's finishing off this meta module review. As I said, it's very, very challenging.
Yeah,
reviewing something that does everything.
Anything you like.
Yep. So, basically. So I'll finish that off, and more articles, more fun.
Excellent. Okay, well, I got both of you waving last week. Yoad, I need you to wave so I can insert you in the beginning of the. So if you just give me a wave, I can use that at the end of at the beginning of the show when I. Yeah, perfect. Okay, excellent. We've got everybody now. I forgot to do it. People were actually commenting on the show this week saying, "Oh, those little wave inserts work really well." It's like people are so invested in the minutiae and the detail.
For someone who worked for Waves for so many years, I should be able to do it.
You should be able to wave. Yeah, that's very true. Right, folks. Anyway, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure as ever. Thanks to all of those in the chat. We'll see you next time, and maybe see you in Brystronica next week. Cheers. Bye-bye now.
See you, everybody. Thanks, Nick.
See ya.
Bye.